What'd you wish for, baby?
I wished for a tea party with Daddy and his friends, like a real one, with fancy cups and everything.
We'll do it, Princess, when you're stronger.
You promise?
I promise. 2 weeks later, Everly died. Nick never threw that tea party. He wasn't even there when she took her last breath, too broken, too afraid. The guilt destroyed him. He became cold, ruthless, a man with nothing left to lose. Until one afternoon, 5 years later, when he saw her again. You won't believe what happens next. Before we continue, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Hit the subscribe button and give this video a like.
5 years ago, Nick Jackman had everything. A modest 2-story house in Cedar Falls with a white picket fence, a wife who looked at him like he hung the moon, and Everly, his little girl with blonde pigtails and a smile that could melt the hardest heart. He'd pull into the driveway after long rides with the Crimson Riders, engine rumbling, leather worn from the road. Before he could even kill the engine, the front door would burst open. "Daddy!" Everly would run out in her favorite floral dress, white with tiny purple flowers, and leap into his arms like he'd been gone for years instead of hours. He'd spin her around, her laughter filling the air like music he'd never get tired of hearing. Rachel would stand in the doorway, flower on her apron, shaking her head with that smile. "You're late again, Jackman." He'd grin, a real grin, the kind that came easy back then. Boone's bike broke down, you know how it is. Inside, the house smelled like home, like warm bread and safety and everything a man could want. Everly would tug his hand, pulling him toward the kitchen table. "Daddy, look, I drew you a picture." Stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, labels in crayon. Daddy, Mommy, me. Nick would kneel down, eye level with her, his voice soft. "It's perfect, Princess. We'll put it right on the fridge." That night they'd eat dinner together, Rachel talking about the bakery, Everly chattering about school, about her friends, about everything and nothing. Nick would sit there, anchor in a storm he didn't know was coming, thinking this was all he'd ever need. After dinner, Everly climbed into his lap, her small hands on his tattooed arms. "Daddy, when I grow up, can I ride motorcycles like you?" Rachel shot him a look. He chuckled. "We'll see, baby. And can we have a tea party with you and Uncle Garrett and Uncle Boone?" "Absolutely, any time you want." She kissed his cheek, her voice sleepy and content. "Promise?" Nick hugged her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Promise."
He had no idea that promise would haunt him for the rest of his life. 3 months later, everything changed. Everly started getting tired. Simple things, playing in the yard, climbing stairs, left her breathless. Bruises appeared on her arms and legs, dark purple marks that wouldn't heal. Rachel tried not to panic. Kids bruise easily, right? Maybe she needed more iron. Maybe it was nothing. But a mother knows. The pediatrician ordered blood tests. Routine, he said, just to be safe. Nick was on a weekend ride when his phone rang. Rachel's voice cracked through the speaker. "Nick, you need to come to the hospital, now." He didn't ask questions. He just rode, broke every speed limit, ran red lights, his heart hammering harder than the engine beneath him. When he burst through the hospital doors, Rachel was in the waiting room, mascara streaked down her face. She couldn't speak, just pointed down the hallway. Dr. Helena Vargas met them in a sterile white room that smelled like disinfectant and the end of the world. Her face was grave, practiced, like she'd delivered this news 1,000 times before. "Mr. and Mrs. Jackman, Everly's blood work shows abnormal white blood cell counts. We ran additional tests." She paused. "I'm so sorry. It's acute lymphoblastic leukemia." The room tilted. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth, a sob trapped in her throat. Nick went completely still. Stone. Ice. What does that mean? His voice was flat, dangerous. It's an aggressive form of childhood leukemia, but it's treatable with chemotherapy, radiation, possibly a bone marrow transplant. There's a good chance. A chance? Nick's voice rose. What kind of chance?
Dr. Vargas hesitated. With treatment, the 5-year survival rate is around 85 to 90% for children her age. And without treatment? Nick! Rachel grabbed his arm. What happens without treatment? The doctor's voice softened. Months, maybe less. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Nick stood abruptly, the chair scraping. Then we treat it, whatever it takes. You hear me? Whatever it takes. That night, Nick sat beside Everly's hospital bed, watching her sleep. She looked so small under the white sheets, an IV in her tiny arm. Rachel cried quietly in the corner. Nick didn't cry. He was too angry. Angry at God. Angry at fate. Angry at himself for not being able to fix this. He leaned close, whispered into the darkness. "You're gonna beat this, Princess. I promise." Another promise he couldn't keep. The next 2 years were hell. Everly started chemotherapy. Her blonde hair fell out in clumps, strands collecting on her pillow in the drain between Rachel's trembling fingers. Rachel saved it in a Ziploc bag, sobbing. Nick put his fist through the garage wall. The chemo made Everly sick, violently sick. She stopped eating. Her once bright eyes turned hollow. The little girl who used to run into his arms could barely lift her head. Nick tried to stay strong. He rode less, read her stories about princesses and dragons, brought her stuffed bunny, Mr. Flopsy. But inside, he was shattering into pieces he'd never put back together. Rachel clung to hope. She prayed every night, joined support groups, made vision boards with pictures of Everly healthy and smiling.
Nick stopped believing. He saw it in the doctor's eyes, the uncertainty, the pity. He hated pity more than he hated the cancer. Then, a miracle. Everly went into remission. For 3 beautiful months, the nightmare seemed to end. She gained weight, color returned to her cheeks, her smile came back. They celebrated her 8th birthday with a small party. She blew out the candles, made a wish. "What'd you wish for, baby?" Rachel asked. "I wished for a tea party with Daddy and his friends, like a real one with fancy cups and everything." Nick forced a smile, throat tight. "We'll do it, Princess, when you're stronger." "You promise?" "I promise." 2 weeks later, the cancer came back, worse than before, aggressive, unstoppable. The miracle was over. Dr. Vargas recommended experimental treatment, risky, painful. Everly would suffer even more. Nick and Rachel fought for the first time in their marriage, screaming in hospital hallways. "She's in pain, Rachel, every damn day." "She's still here, Nick. She's still fighting." "Fighting for what? To die slower?" Rachel slapped him hard, tears streaming. "Don't you dare give up on her." But Nick already had. Deep down, he knew Everly wasn't going to make it. He started drinking, coming home late. Garrett, Boone, the crew, they tried to reach him. He pushed them all away. Everly asked about the tea party again. "Daddy, when can we have it?" "Soon, baby, soon." But he never planned it, because planning it meant accepting she was dying, and Nick couldn't accept that. Everly was 9 years old when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do. Hospice care, make her comfortable, say goodbye. Rachel didn't leave Everly's side, sleeping in a chair next to the bed, holding her daughter's hand through every labored breath.
Nick couldn't handle it. He'd stand in the doorway looking at his daughter, frail, pale, barely recognizable, and he couldn't go in. His chest felt like it was caving in. Garrett found him in the parking lot one night, leaning against his bike, shaking. "Nick, you gotta go back in there." "I can't. She needs you." "I can't watch her die, Garrett." Garrett grabbed his shoulders. "Then don't watch her die. Be with her while she's still here." But Nick didn't go back in. He rode away, drove to a bar, drank until he couldn't feel anything. That night, Everly asked Rachel, "Where's Daddy?" Rachel's heart shattered. She lied through her tears, "He'll be here soon, sweetheart." Everly, clutching her plastic teacup, the one she'd kept by her bedside for months, whispered, "We never had our tea party." Rachel couldn't speak. "Do you think Daddy forgot?" "No, honey, he didn't forget. He loves you so much." "Then why isn't he here?" Rachel had no answer. If you're yet to tell us where you are watching from, kindly go ahead and do that now. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you. At 3:47 in the morning, Everly's heart stopped. Rachel was holding her hand. Nurses rushed in, but it was too late. Rachel called Nick again and again. The phone rang and rang, vibrating in his truck where he sat, passed out, reeking whiskey. By the time he got to the hospital, Everly was gone. Her body still warm, but she was gone. Nick stood frozen in the doorway. Rachel sat beside the bed, clutching Everly's lifeless hand, sobbing. Nick didn't cry, didn't speak, just stared. On the bedside table sat the plastic teacup. Next to it, a note in Everly's shaky handwriting. "For our tea party. Love, Everly." Nick picked it up. His hands didn't shake. His face didn't move. He was completely numb. Rachel looked up, eyes red and swollen. "Where were you, Nick?" He didn't answer. "Where were you?" she screamed. Still nothing. Nick turned and walked out. He didn't go to the funeral. He didn't say goodbye. He just disappeared into the wind. 3 weeks after Everly's death, Rachel left. She packed her bags while Nick sat on the couch, staring at nothing. No TV, no music, just silence and the sound of zippers closing, drawers sliding shut. "I can't do this anymore, Nick." Her voice was hollow, empty. "I lost my daughter. I can't lose myself trying to save you, too." Nick didn't respond, didn't beg her to stay, didn't apologize, didn't even look at her. Rachel paused at the door, waiting, hoping, one last chance for him to say something. "She loved you," Rachel whispered, tears streaming, "more than anything in this world, and you abandoned her when she needed you most." The door closed. Nick was alone. He sold the house 2 months later, couldn't stand the memories, Everly's laughter in the hallway, her drawings on the fridge, her room untouched like a shrine to his failure. He moved into a crappy apartment above a garage, 1 room, no windows, perfect for a man who didn't want to see daylight.
He stopped answering calls, stopped seeing the crew. When they did see him, he was different, cold, distant, like something essential had been carved out and nothing remained but the shell. The Crimson Riders noticed immediately. Nick became brutal, reckless. He took jobs he never would have considered, dangerous runs, shady deals, violent confrontations that could have gotten them all killed. It was like he was trying to die but didn't have the courage to pull the trigger himself. Garrett confronted him one night outside a bar. "Nick, man, you're spiraling. We're worried about you." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You haven't been fine since—" "Don't." Nick's voice was ice, dead. "Don't say her name." Garrett stepped back. The message was clear. Everly's name became forbidden. No one mentioned her again. Nick kept the plastic teacup, carried it in his vest pocket every single day. A reminder, a punishment, a weight he'd carry until the day he died. 5 years passed like that. 5 years of riding, drinking, fighting, existing but not living. Nick Jackman was no longer a father, no longer a husband,
no longer even a man. He was a ghost on a motorcycle, riding toward nothing. Until that afternoon when he saw her again. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind where the sun burns too bright and the world feels too alive for a man like Nick. The Crimson Riders were riding through Maplewood Acres, a quiet suburb that smelled like fresh-cut grass, kids playing basketball, sprinklers hissing on lawns, a world Nick didn't belong to anymore. Then he saw her, a little girl, sitting alone at a bright pink tea table on the sidewalk, 6 years old maybe, 7, wearing a floral dress, white with tiny purple flowers, the exact same dress Everly used to wear. Nick's breath caught, his hands tightened on the handlebars. The world tilted. Balloons tied to the chair, a handmade banner, "Happy Birthday, Kylie," plastic teacups arranged perfectly. But no one else, no friends, no laughter, just a little girl waiting, hoping. Nick slowed his bike, his vision tunneled. All he could see was her, that dress, those hopeful eyes. Garrett pulled up beside him. "Boss, you good?"
Nick couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. The little girl looked up, startled by the engines. Her eyes widened, not with fear, but with curiosity. And then she waved. Nick's heart, dead for 5 years, lurched in his chest. "Pull over," he said, voice barely audible. "What?" I said, "pull over." The crew exchanged glances, but obeyed. They parked along the curb. Neighbors peeked through windows. A woman, Kylie's mother, stepped onto the porch, alarm crossing her face. Nick removed his sunglasses. His eyes were bloodshot, glassy. He walked toward Kylie slowly, like a man approaching a ghost. Up close, she didn't look exactly like Everly. Her hair was darker, her nose different, but the innocence, the loneliness, the hope in her eyes, it was all there. "Are you here for my tea party?" Kylie asked, voice small and sweet. Nick's throat closed. He couldn't speak. All he could hear was Everly's voice. "We never had our tea party." His knees hit the concrete, hard. The pain didn't register. Nothing registered except this moment. He knelt in front of Kylie, this stranger's child, and for the first time in 5 years, his walls cracked. "Yeah," he whispered, voice breaking, "if you'll have us." Kylie's face lit up like the sun breaking through storm clouds. "Really?" Nick nodded, unable to speak. His throat was too tight. He gestured to his crew, Garrett, Boone, Cade, Flint, Jax, men covered in leather and tattoos, scarred from bar fights and broken bones. "Sit," Nick said quietly. Garrett blinked. "You serious?" "Sit down." One by one, they obeyed. These hardened men lowered themselves onto tiny pink plastic chairs. Cade's knees nearly touched his chest. Flint looked mortified. Jax muttered, "If anyone takes a picture." But Nick didn't care. He sat across from Kylie, his massive frame dwarfing the furniture, and for the first time in 5 years, he felt something other than emptiness. Kylie giggled, a sound so pure it cut through him like a blade. She picked up a plastic teapot and began pouring imaginary tea. "Do you take sugar, mister?" Nick's voice cracked. "Yeah, lots." She handed him a cup, their fingers brushing. Nick's hand shook. From the porch, Lena Bennett watched, tears streaming. She didn't know these men, didn't know their story, but she knew pain when she saw it. Kylie chatted happily. "I invited 10 friends from school, but nobody came. Mommy says they just forgot."
Nick's jaw tightened. He knew they didn't forget. Kids could be cruel. "Well," Nick said quietly, "we came."
Kylie's smile could have lit up the whole street. "You're the best guests ever. What are your names?" Nick hesitated. "I'm Nick. This is Garrett. Boone, Cade, Flint, and Jax." "Those are cool names. Do you ride motorcycles?" "We do." "That's so cool." She poured more pretend tea, completely unaware she was giving these broken men something they'd forgotten existed, a moment of innocence, a moment of light. Garrett caught Nick's eye, a silent question. "You okay?" Nick wasn't okay, but he was here, and that was something. Kylie held up her tiny cup. "We should make a toast." The bikers awkwardly raised their cups, massive men holding plastic toys like sacred objects. "To new friends," Kylie declared. "To new friends," they echoed. But Nick's voice was barely a whisper, and in his mind he was toasting someone else entirely. "I'm sorry, Everly. I'm so sorry. I'm 5 years too late, but I'm finally here. I'm finally at the tea party. Even if it's not yours." After the tea party, as Nick stood to leave, Kylie grabbed his hand. "Will you come back?" Nick froze. He looked down at her small hand in his scarred palm.
Lena approached cautiously. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to her." Nick's voice was hoarse. She shouldn't have to sit alone. Lena studied his face, seeing past the leather to the grief underneath. "You lost someone, didn't you?" Nick's walls slammed back up. "We should go." But Lena touched his arm gently. "It's okay. You don't have to talk about it." And something in Nick shattered. "Her name was Everly," he whispered. "She was 9. Leukemia." Lena's hand flew to her mouth. "She wanted a tea party with me and my brothers." His voice cracked. "I kept telling her later, kept telling her when you're stronger, but she never got stronger, and I never showed up." Tears slid down his face. "She died alone, holding a plastic teacup, waiting for me. And I wasn't there because I was drunk in a parking lot, too much of a coward to watch her die." Lena's eyes filled with tears. Nick knelt in front of Kylie one more time. "Kylie, listen to me. You're special. You're worth showing up for. Don't ever forget that." Kylie nodded seriously, sensing the weight of his words. Nick pulled the plastic teacup from his vest pocket, the one Everly held when she died, the one he'd carried for 5 years. He handed it to Kylie. "This belonged to someone very important to me. I want you to have it." "Why?" "Because she would have wanted you to." Kylie took it carefully, like it was made of gold. Nick stood, turned to walk away. "Nick?" Kylie called softly. He stopped but didn't turn around. "She forgives you. Wherever she is, she forgives you." Nick's shoulders shook. He didn't respond, just climbed on his bike, the crew following in silence. As they rode away, Garrett pulled up beside him. "You did good, brother." Nick's voice was raw. "I should have done it 5 years ago. But you did it today. That counts." Nick didn't answer, but for the first time in 5 years, the crushing weight on his chest felt lighter. He wasn't healed. He'd never be healed. But maybe, just maybe, he could finally breathe. 2 weeks later, Nick did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He rode to Pinewood Cemetery. The crew stayed back, giving him space. They knew what this meant. Nick walked through rows of headstones until he found hers. Everly Rose Jackman, 2016 to 2025. Forever Daddy's little angel. He sat on the grass. For a long time, he just sat there, silent. Finally, he spoke. "Hey, Princess." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry I'm late."
Tears fell freely now, no more walls. I met a little girl. Her name's Kylie. She reminded me of you. He wiped his eyes. I finally showed up for a tea party. His breath hitched. I can't take back what I did. I can't fix that I wasn't there when you needed me most. I can't change that I was too scared to give you what you asked for. He pressed his palm against the cold stone. But I'm done running, baby. I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt. I'm done being angry at the world for taking you. Years of grief finally finding voice. I love you, Everly. I never stopped, not for 1 second, and I'm so sorry I let you down. He stayed until sunset, talking to her about everything, about Kylie, about the tea party, about how he wished things had been different. When he finally stood, something had shifted. The weight hadn't disappeared, it never would, but it felt bearable now. 1 month later, Nick pulled up to Kylie's house. Lena was planting flowers. She saw him and smiled. She talks about you all the time.
Kylie ran out, squealing. "Nick, you came back!" He knelt. "Just checking in. How's the teacup?" "I take care of it every day, just like you said." "Good girl." Kylie hugged him tight. Nick slowly wrapped his arms around her. As he rode away, Boone asked, "You gonna keep visiting?" Nick considered. "Maybe. Or maybe I just needed to finish what I started." The Crimson Riders rode into the sunset. Not healed, not fixed, but no longer hollow. Nick carried Everly's memory forward now, not as a burden, but as a reminder. Show up, love hard, don't wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow isn't promised. This story is dedicated to every parent carrying the weight of regret. You can't change the past, but you can choose to show up today. And sometimes that's enough. If you love stories like this, kindly hit the subscribe button and give us a like.